Hey, jerks, we're live. Mike Crawford. What's going on? Saturday night, 6:30. It was a very good Friday yesterday. If you might have noticed, there was a late news dump. It's so funny. They dropped all the news on Friday evening, right before the Karen Reed special on national TV last night. You might have heard Traub is out. David Traub, the press secretary of Michael Morrissey, the one I fingered him. I pointed him out. I said, this guy with Gretchen Voss and Coffindaffer and KP, he was in on it. He's out. He resigned. He said it's time to go. I guess he's just like Whitey. Whitey knew when it was time to go. Traub is like, maybe Traub's going to head to Santa Monica. That's maybe a good call. Somebody that didn't know what time it was, but he had to go too, is Tully, Brian Tully, the state police detective with Norfolk County. He's been removed from Norfolk County. He's the supervisor. It's amazing. I'm feeling really good, I got to say, because Tully and Traub were the ones with KP that were harassing us. They were harassing me. And we know they went after Aiden. And a lot's been exposed, and we get some great guests. We got our boys back. We got Mazza Media here, and we got attorney Mark Bederow. So let's bring them up. I think we're going to have some fun tonight. I'm feeling good. Feeling like I don't drink, but I'm ready to have a drink. You know what I mean? It's like that type of night after what happened yesterday. So let's bring up the guys. Mazza Media.
What's going on, Mike? It's a great night. I'm happy to be here. Lots happening. It's been a long battle, but little by little, we're chipping away at this corruption and chipping away at all these problems that have been overcasting Massachusetts for the longest time. So piece by piece, little by little, it's all about diligence, us staying involved in this and continuing to do what we do, and little by little.
It's all about
Yep.
It's all about Bederow too. I mean, you got to say, Bederow is just cleaning up right now. And
oh yeah,
how happy are you and I just to be
I'm very pumped.
For a Bederow ride?
I'm very pumped. I was just telling him before the show. I said, I was just praying for the day where Mark would either represent Karen or represent Aiden. And when that day happened, I might have to replace my roof because I probably jumped through the roof with excitement. But Mark's the man, and he's just with methodical precision, just letter after letter, doing a lot of damage. And Mark's the man. I'm looking forward to just hearing what he has to say tonight, Mike.
Yeah, me too. And David Yannetti, my North Shore guy.
Yep.
He commented on Bederow today too on Twitter, which was amazing to see. So it's just been this is great. I'm so excited. Yep. Let's bring up Bederow. Attorney Bederow.
How are you?
Good. How you doing tonight? You're like so memeable now. We got whole threads about like sayings that you use and terms you use.
I don't know. Anything interesting going on last few days, few weeks? I don't know. Just making the donuts.
How you do it in Manhattan?
Hey, listen, you dig in, you look, you find, and you expose. And that's all we're doing.
I don't even know where to start. I mean, do we want to comment on you mentioned a pre-show. I didn't even think of that I was thinking there was only 2 people gone, but there's really 3 people in the last couple days, from Lynn Beeland announcing resignation. Long time. What's her title with
First ADA? She's the consigliere, the underboss. That's always a big loss for any DA to lose the so-called right-hand man. She's apparently, I don't know, her up there in age, so I don't know that one is scandalous or interesting as much as the other 2, which I think are very interesting.
Traub and Tully, and this happens right after you drop this Bederow letter number 3.
Hey, I don't know what's going on in the office. I don't know what's going on in the state police. Again, the facts present themselves just like, evidence tends to present itself. You follow the evidence, and we are aggressive. And, if they're going to prosecute someone, they're going to have to do it fairly, with integrity and due process. And if they don't, we're going to let them know. And demand answers. And that's what these letters do. They're demands. They are demands for evidence and demands for answers. And depending on what those are, that will determine the next course of action, and we'll see. But there's, certainly a lot going on there that we have to wait and see.
Mazza, what do you think?
It's just hard to believe it's been a year since Aiden's original arrest when they seized his devices, and that these devices to this day, over a calendar year later, and now almost coming on to 2025 here, that when are they going to return these devices back to Aiden that they've seized? And they're trying to claim, oh, we haven't looked at it yet, or we're going to look at it. It's just absolutely insane. And you just look at other cases where people's devices are seized. Eventually, if they're necessary to be returned to them, they are. In this particular case, they basically just put it in a lockbox somewhere or in a locker somewhere and let it sit there so Aiden can't access his details, because he does have source material in there from his sources that he hasn't been able to access, that he could actually do a lot more with. And, he doesn't have all that material, and they don't want him to have that material, is my guess. They want to make sure that he's as disarmed as possible. And that's probably the motive in keeping that away from him.
Well, let me tell you how this works in the real world, which I guess is defined outside Norfolk County for these purposes, without speaking generally about the current case that you're talking about. In the real world, when cell phones are taken, or computers, laptops, iPads, whatever, by the cops, prosecutor, whatever it is, FBI, they get imaged, and they get imaged right away. And that's a process that does not take long at all. They literally just take a mirror image of the entire contents. That's the extraction of a device, and they put it on a different device, if you will, whether it's a flash drive or whatnot. And at that point, they're done with the phone. The phone at that point is physically useless. You have all the data on another device. And what most sensible prosecutors do in that situation, unless the phones themselves have any evidentiary value, which in some cases they could, most cases they don't. It's the possession of the phone, in other words, is not usually something that is of evidentiary significance. I suppose it could be in a stolen property case or a robbery case, or if there's identifying marks. But, in a situation that you're talking about where the phone itself is meaningless, it's the data. The question is, why here would the phones have to remain in possession, as opposed to, I know you've heard this with Brian Walsh, the phone went back in the ordinary course of business. They took the data, they gave him the phones back. It's too late to do anything at that point. Once you extract the data, you have a snapshot of what the phone was at the time it was extracted. And so whatever Walsh, I'm using this as a hypothetical, is trying to do and delete and do this furious thing, they've already got, on the other device that they extracted from, how to chop up your wife, and, what's the best way to do this, and all of that. So you have to ask yourself, why in any particular case would they hold devices for that period of time? And then you say, well, you do get sometimes unique situations where, for example, well, what if it's the phone of a journalist or somebody that has privileged communications? That is a complicating factor. They shouldn't be looking at those sort of things. And you say, well, if there has to be what they keep calling a taint team, okay, that can take potential time to do. But, and this is all in the public record, so I'm not telling you anything that's not already in the public record. But you have to understand that, at least initially, in the case that you're talking about, the position of the prosecutor was, we're not going to look, we don't want a taint team. We don't care. We don't care that there could be privileged communications. We don't care that there could be sources of journalism. And that was the attitude for about a week or so, until somebody said, the light has got to go on. You can't do this. So what happens common sensibly, and you can look in these letters they're in the public record at this point. There is that week or more period where they're searching. Okay. And that's a fact. That's not open for discussion. And data was extracted. That's not open for discussion. It was not disclosed to the defense. That's not open for discussion. It was presented to a third party. That's not open for discussion. Representations have been made that the data doesn't exist and we have nothing to give you. That's not open for discussion. A judge said in April of 2024, this is a public record, that you must turn over all Rule 14 evidence by May, which this would be encompassed in. It wasn't disclosed. That's not open for discussion. We were in court September 26th. You saw it. Half the discussion on the record was about cell phones and suppressing evidence because they weren't searched. The position was they haven't been searched. So this is not rocket science. The fact is it was searched. It was searched in October of 2023, and it was used as part of an investigation into a Stoughton court clerk and provided, and that's not acceptable. And these are questions that they're going to have to answer, and they're going to answer it one way or the other. We expect them to answer it in the letter that we have, and if they don't, then you move to the other way. But, you know, let's hear the explanation before we draw any firm conclusions. But the bottom line is what's happening here is not the way prosecution is supposed to be. That there's this, it's indefensible what has happened here.
Now, I obviously want to ask you like a million questions, but I know a lot of stuff you can't answer. So anything you can,
whatever's public is it.
tell us,
I
yeah.
past what's not public.
Let me ask you this question. Like, it seems like you want Mello to recuse himself, right? Do you think he will?
Well, I'm not going to speak for what he intends to do himself. I would simply say that I think we've, as you saw in prior letters, if you will, explained why someone, if they are a witness, cannot be an advocate. Every lawyer is familiar with what's called the witness advocate rule. You cannot represent a party while at the same time being a witness on material facts in the case. I mean, you can't, the risk is that as the advocate, you may give unsworn testimony that a jury or a fact finder could credit when it ought to be under oath. And you can't play both sides of that equation. It's a conflict of interest. And when somebody is literally, and you know, the word literally is overused, we all tend to do it, but not in this case, but is literally on the phone with an alleged victim when an alleged crime is occurring, you're a witness. That's it. And that doesn't even get into all the issues that we wrote about a few days ago about representations that have been made about disclosure or not disclosure of evidence. So there's a hearing scheduled in January to address this. He's going to be a witness. Brian Tully will have to be a witness. Other civilians may have to be witnesses. And I guess the way to avoid that is for him to step off the case. But that won't be the end of it because you're still going to be a witness. So, but I'm not going to speak for what they intend to do. I don't know.
It's a question that came in. Good one. About Michael Morrissey's email, the email on the Bederow account. How did you guys get that? Is that public knowledge?
I think Aiden probably shared that in one of his descriptions. It's his personal email. It's blacked out. We're not going to share the district attorney's personal email address. I don't think that's appropriate, other than to say it's an iCloud account, which is not mass.gov, and therein lies the problem. As far as where it came from, I think the letter actually also states that they did an investigation that was started in September of 2023 after the district attorney should have been recused from anything involving, witness intimidation allegations to witnesses from the Karen Reed case that were related to a certain individual. And as part of that, they presented a court clerk with, their findings, if you will. And for whatever reason, they included amongst those findings the district attorney's email. And so that's a, them problem, not a we problem. That's the fact that a third party felt compelled that, the defense ought to have access to that is a good thing. But the fundamental problem is we should have had access to this from them. And that email, which is in the public record, as you know, at this point, that email is talking about allegations of witness intimidation of two individuals, Chris Albert and Jennifer McCabe, who are named witnesses in an indictment against Aiden. In other words, whether that's on private email or not, that email is discoverable and relevant to this case. That's something that they were obligated to disclose to us anyway. And that email, in terms of demanding investigations, also says, please advise. I await your advice. What's the advice? There's more, right? I mean, nobody thinks that there wasn't any response to this, or was there? I don't know, but we intend to find out.
Wow. Have you ever seen a district attorney using like a burner email, like their personal email, to like message a judge like this about something that should be on the record? But it seems like to me, it seems like he was doing this to hide it from the record. Like that's what it's. So have you ever seen it?
No, I've never seen an email from an iCloud account belonging to the elected district attorney to several high-ranking members of the judiciary complaining about why a court clerk in a public court proceeding somehow gave evidence to, someone that they obviously had already hired a special prosecutor to investigate. I've also never seen until this case certain individuals have such power and access to get prosecutors to act. I mean, let's not forget, and again, this is all in the public record, that this generated from a text message from a named witness in the indictment saying, I'm horrified by this, do something. And it somehow led the district attorney to act on his iCloud account to make demands of a number of judicial officials to launch an investigation, which happened. And next thing you know, phones are getting extracted that they're denying have ever been searched. And here we are. And this is outrageous. And, if they disclosed the evidence a year ago, it might be less outrageous. But you have to remember, those phones are still being denied to us. And the data on the phones is still being denied to us. And at this point, there's no justification for any of this. What's the answer? And I guess we'll have to wait and see. Nope, you're silenced.
It's shocking that you don't have access to the phones when KP does.
You're right.
I mean, that just
the ultimate insider on that other side of the ball, huh? Jeez.
I don't even know what to say. There's a lot of coincidences again that are noted in the letter about timing and information. We'll see where it all goes, but the bottom line is these are the indisputable facts. It was not disclosed. It's been misrepresented. We know it's been extracted for a year. I mean, we have the proof. The proof was presented. We know that this all generated from a witness in the case complaining to the district attorney who made this happen. And we know that a special prosecutor denied that it existed. And then we know that a special prosecutor went to a grand jury several months later and specifically elicited testimony about the search of the phones. So, in the King's English, what the hell is going on here? I mean, if you're going to prosecute fairly. And this the real irony is, if you look at the Morrissey email, he's whining about this matter of grave concern and how we're losing confidence in the system. No one's losing confidence in the system because you're, advocating on Jennifer McCabe's behalf to demand an investigation to things you don't like. What the public loses confidence in the system is when you use personal email to contact judges ex parte to demand investigations, which happen, which result in the extraction of phones that people in court then misrepresent, that were never searched. And it turns out they were, and it's not disclosed. That's what undermines the confidence of the public in the system. And when you add in the fact that, look what's happening. The office is, it's cracking from within, it appears, which, we don't know the real reasons for any of that. We know that there are still some of these people that are under investigation, if you will. there's problems here, and I don't even know where to begin with this. I mean,
Yeah.
they hired a special prosecutor to do this. Why is the district attorney engaged in ex parte communications on a private email server, whining about someone that you just literally days before hired a special prosecutor to?
Right.
We'll await their answers.
That's another comment. They said, how does a judge not dismiss Aiden's case right now?
Well, these are not motions to dismiss right now. Again, these are demands to the prosecution. Listen, and we mentioned this in the letter. Cosgrove is an honorable person. Okay, I have no reason to believe that he's done anything untoward. I think he's obviously relying upon information that he was given, but we are awaiting his response to very serious questions. But the way that this is being done is, let's hear what he has to say, what his response is. Does he speak to the district attorney? He should. Does he speak to Tully? He should. Does he speak to Mello? Absolutely should. Does he speak to anyone else? We just have to await.
Kind of just answered this question, but maybe you want to flesh it out a little more. Like, why are the letters, are they strategic?
Well, everything lawyers do has a purpose and a reason. I don't want to get into too much detail, but we as a team are doing something for a reason. We have a lot of experience as lawyers, the people who are on this team. We are waiting for answers, and we will act accordingly. But everything has a reason, a strategic reason, and every move is made with the next move potentially planned, depending on what any answer is. I think any strategic lawyer does that. But at their core, these are discovery demands. These are common. What's uncommon is the set of circumstances in which we have to lay out for someone to make sure that it's understood what the basis of our grievance is. I mean, the idea that we would have to lay this out and put this all out there is disturbing. But again, let's get the response and then go from there.
Now, there's been a criticism that if you were serious, this is from the KP crazy camp, that you would be filing motions and not sending letters. How would you respond to that?
Well, Catherine Peter Esquire is entitled to her opinion. That's fine. I've been doing this 26 years at a high level, as is Tim Bradle. It's fine. It's a free country. You have a First Amendment right to say whatever you want and call us whatever you choose to call us. That response is just born of ignorance more than anything else. For a lack of experience in this arena, that's fine. She's entitled to her opinion. Doesn't mean she knows what she's talking about. Motions serve a role. And eventually, when you want relief from a court, you have to do it in the form of a motion. But I'm sure most sensible people can envision a scenario that when you make a motion, whatever the motion may be, you want to be in the strongest position possible. And if you have unsatisfactory responses from your adversary, that may be something worthwhile to include in said motion before making said motion.
Perfect answer. There's also, how many, you've written 3 letters now. I'm expecting more. I think Aiden's hinted there may be another one at least. Are there going to be more letters?
I don't know. I mean, this is not a game, obviously. There's a purpose for these, but there has to be a purpose. It's not just people sit around and say, let's write a letter because it's been a week. There has to be a reason. Look, we recently learned that they extracted a man's phone in October of 2023 and have denied it and haven't disclosed any evidence. That's worth complaining about. We recently learned that the district attorney is using personal email to launch investigations for which he already had recused himself and kind of was the impetus, the driving force behind all of this. That's something worth talking about. But as far as will there be more, who knows? I mean, it depends on where these things go. I mean, usually in a normal case, when you write letters that are discovery demands, they tend to be generally vanilla and generic because you just regurgitate the statute, the demands, and you wait for them. This case is anything but that. And this unfortunately appears to be part of an overriding pattern in Norfolk County that you kind of have to work harder to get to what you're legally entitled to, if you get it at all.
Now, Tim Bredel represented a gentleman in Everett recently who went to a jury trial and won for witness intimidation. He posted this
bench trial.
Yeah, bench trial. Thank you. Not a jury trial, bench trial. And basically this person posted a cartoon. It was a cartoon, and they filed witness intimidation charge against him. Bredel won the case for his name's Tony Raymond from Everett, Mass. Is that helpful, do you think, to Aiden and his case? I know it's not, depend different circumstances, but in general, do you think that's a good sign?
I think anything which shows that a judge is going to require actual crimes, okay, before we call something witness intimidation. I mean, Massachusetts is out of control with this witness intimidation. So anytime a judge says not here, even if a client is, I don't know much about Tony other from then talking to Tim about it and whatnot, but anytime someone has done something that, that's distasteful, doesn't make it illegal, even if it hurts somebody's feelings. And in Massachusetts, it appears to be anybody can say anything. I mean, look, the statute is problematic. I mean, if you watched the show last night, which I'm sure you're going to want to talk about in more detail, the Dateline thing, there were statements made by a woman that were could have been very emotionally upsetting to Karen Reed, who is a potential witness in her own case. Given the world we live in under this ridiculous Massachusetts rule, that woman could be arrested. Now, she never will be. And by the way, nor should she be. Okay. She was expressing her opinion about I guess not relative, but a close friend, whatever. I don't know what the relation is. It doesn't matter. The point is, no serious person would really say that woman ought to be arrested. But when you look at what's going on, people are getting arrested for sharing a similar opinion based on the content of their speech. If it's critical of so-called protected witnesses who are on the Commonwealth side, people are getting arrested. They're getting arrested for littering ducks. They're getting arrested for all kinds of things. They're getting arrested for, again, I don't want to talk specifics, but the woman last night said Karen Reed should tell the truth. You're lying, essentially. Tell the truth. Can you think of another case where somebody is presently under indictment, where some of the allegations are yelling out loud, very loud and clear? You ought to tell the truth. Now,
Aiden Carney.
It's similar conduct, but if you're legislating based on the content of speech,
who said it? Based on who said it. That's basically what it comes down to.
Same principle. It's the content. It's content-based regulation, which the First Amendment does not allow. So this statute is really unconstitutional for two reasons. It's unconstitutional on its face because of its emotional harm, whatever the hell that means. But it's also being unconstitutional as applied, which is just lawyer talk for it's being exploited by officials in Norfolk County to stifle speech of people who are criticizing the very people that are enforcing it. And that's part of the problem too. When you have the state police homicide unit running around collaring people for rubber ducks and speech violations, they're upset because they're the ones that are getting attacked. They shouldn't be the ones investigating. Okay. If they're the alleged, they have a bias, they have a motive, they're involved in this, they have a complete bias in this. So, you could go on across the board about this with this witness intimidation stuff, but this statute, the way it's being used around that state is just an absolute joke.
Another question. Could it be illegal for Tully if he shared Turtleboy's text outside, if he did share those with KP, let's say that Tully did, could that be illegal?
Maybe. I mean, we'll have to, again, wait and see where this all leads. Look, again, the letters are what they are. There are missing messages on a certain extraction report. Some of those messages have appeared online. I mean, that's not even a dispute. They're not even hiding that. Okay. There were other statements about predicting dates of arrest, predicting or knowing who was under investigation. And, I don't need to have a pissing contest back and forth with someone.
But it's obvious. I mean, I knew it it's what's so great is that I knew it for watching her Twitter, but you confirmed it with actual documentation, which is so great to see. But so many of us have watched her in December and January and February. We saw it happen in live time.
The way the lawyers look at it is when you talk about people like that, civilians who may be doing things, the conversation that we'll have with people like her and others, it'll be under oath on a witness stand, not on Twitter.
Awesome. I guess if she needs some advice, maybe she should find an attorney. Like I needed an attorney when she was hassling me.
Drop that mic, Mike. Drop that mic.
Be proactive, KP.
Right,
be proactive, like I was. Maybe get off social media for a few months until this is all over too, KP.
Yeah. They were like a Wolfpack on you last Christmas, all around that time. They were all over you like flies on Mike. And, they had a lot of us like trying to run. They were trying to make us all run ahead for the hills. Like you guys are all going down.
Yeah.
They're going to start knocking on your doors. You're all going to jail. And this is all they were saying last December and January, all over X and across the internet. They were so convinced. And ultimately, some of those people right now, they're losing a lot of their resources on the inside because these guys are getting rehomed and,
rehomed. I love that one. Rehomed.
Yeah, that's from Aiden. That one, yeah.
I just got a funny text message. I have to give a shout out to one of my lawyer friends who's harassing me out New York, New Jersey way, saying that he's actually watching. I'm not sure how and why. And he says he wants to throw up. So Dan, sorry, man. Enjoy. He'll know what I mean. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's a New York lawyer. What kind of attorney? Is he a tax accountant or is he criminal defense? What is he?
Yeah, no, he's a like me, a former Manhattan DA who specializes in real estate law. That's what we do.
So he's a shark. He's a shark.
Yeah, no, he's a high-end defense attorney.
Making the big bucks. I like that we got the high net worth people watching the Young Jurks.
Well, now I'm pumping his ego, so at least you'll enjoy that, right, Dan? Okay.
There we go.
We're gonna sell him some watches tonight.
Yeah.
Does he need a gold watch? We'll sell him a watch.
Oh, I'm waiting for the next text. It's coming. Don't worry. Oh, there it is.
There it is. Someone said a grifter. I love our people.
Yeah.
Some people. I posted the. I didn't even make that. People make the cover photos for us now. Like I just steal them from. That was such a great YouTube, but one person got mad. They were like, "That doesn't fit, Mark." It's like, come on, be in on the joke.
Roll with the joke.
Roll with it.
Roll with it.
Whatever. It's you have to laugh at some of this.
I love the coins and the YouTube plaques. That was like, we actually don't have a PayPal, so don't try to send us money on PayPal. There's a lot of questions tonight, and I know I see some of them in the chat. What do you think, like in terms of Tully? Do you think because people asked about, he gave Lindsay's cell phone to Aiden's defense, and Mello didn't want that to happen. And there's a question here: do you think Tully could have done that on purpose?
That's for other people to decide. I mean, that's kind of like, to me, Twitter nonsense about people who think they have inside access to what's going on, but really are just sitting out there with nothing to do on a Saturday morning. So they write 8-page diatribes about all kinds of theories about how the world works. I don't know, and I don't care. That means nothing to me. The issue for Tully at this point is this is not a lateral move. Okay, let's just use common sense, or as another guy would say, logic. What logic tells you is that a new colonel came in and within a week or two tossed him overboard. Okay, and I think the biggest tell as to what's going on here is they threw him out without a replacement ready to go. So this unit is now rudderless, at least in the short term. They put out essentially an RFP looking for someone to take over this unit, which tells you that's not planned, that's not lateral. You're getting put into the island of misfit toys, wherever that is, state, which is probably in Framingham, I would imagine. I think it's probably the state police rubber room, essentially, where they just don't know what to do with you in the short term, and I don't know what they'll do with him in the long term. But the fact that they say he's still capable of testifying on current cases, of course he is. I mean, that's really not adding much. But then you look at the last sentence of the release, he's still under investigation. I don't know what's going to happen to him. I don't even know why he's fully under investigation, but I do know this. If he testifies on the Karen Reed case or any other case, he's going to get hurt on this, just like Buchanan, just like Proctor and everyone else. Hang on one sec, guys. I'm sorry.
What are you?
I'm getting like off screen.
Somebody needs a charger here.
Somebody. I don't know.
Oh,
Take it all. Take it all.
One of the kids.
I have like, it's like Tom and Jerry's stomach. I have like 8,000 in here, but not the right one.
Right.
So look, I think he's, again, we'll have to wait and see what happens to him, but this is another win for all of these people, including ourselves, who are dealing with cases involving the state police. I mean, that they are all in trouble, all of them. I've never seen anything like it, and we'll have to see ultimately where it ends up. But there's no way they're going to be spinning this into this is just, a new colonel moving pieces on the chessboard. Okay, no chance.
It's a good question here, and I would say also about Traub, because someone said who in their right mind on the Mass State Police would want to replace Tully?
I don't know. You know what? I could picture a good. There are good people even in the Massachusetts State Police. I mean, I think it's important to recognize this unit. I don't know if this is on the bingo card or not, but we've talked about it has to be fumigated. And it is being fumigated. So, shout out to Colonel Noble for starting the process of fumigating. But I can imagine very good, dedicated police who would say, I want to come in there and do this right. But if you get someone like that, that's not going to bode well for the rest of them, because the first thing that a honest broker police officer is going to come in and clean up that unit is going to say, top to bottom, fumigate it. I don't want this crew of text messaging misogynists and all of this, get them all out of here. So if they really want change and they bring in somebody who's willing to take that on and they're doing it the right way, that's not going to bode well for the rest of these guys, because who the hell wants to keep the rest of them? Would you?
No. What about Traub's replacement? I think that would be the one that I wouldn't want to be Michael Morrissey's press guy.
It's a bizarre move on both levels. The guy's been there 25 years, and essentially they're gearing up for a campaign. I don't know how it works in Norfolk County, but the way a lot of times you see this in the New York City DA's offices, that the press person will, during a campaign, step away from the office to work for the campaign, because you can't do both. I'm sure in Norfolk they don't particularly care about that, but you're not supposed to, work on a campaign on government time. That would be illegal. But normally, you would have that expert be your campaign guy, and he's leaving right as they're gearing up. There are at least 2 challengers that are announcing, and he's leaving. And it makes me wonder, I don't know the answer to this, obviously, but is that a tell that perhaps, the top guy is ready to leave? Because you bring in somebody you really don't know who's been a reporter for 50 years or 40 years, whatever it said on his bio. What does he know about the politics side of this? Probably very little. I don't know. So that's telling. What's also telling is that the guy coming in who's willing to do this, not the youngest guy in the world, career reporter, small newspaper, that's fine. But in his bio is, recently been writing about the Karen Reed case, which is fine. But most reporters, and let's assume he wrote it straight. I don't know. I don't assume he's a bad guy. But what does a real reporter do? They're going to try to talk to sources on both sides. And what happens if this guy has spoken to people, whether associated with her defense or her family or people that support her, I don't know, and has that data and is now firmly entrenched in the Morrissey camp? We have a potential conflict there if that's the kind of thing. Doesn't mean there is one. It doesn't mean he knows anything, but it's very troubling that you bring someone in who is actively reporting on these huge cases as a straight shooter and is now entrenched in your camp and may have access to information that he gathered as a reporter. And it would be unethical to share that essentially as like a spy in the enemy camp. I'm not saying he would do that, but once again, it just feels like everything they do opens up more questions rather than giving anyone confidence in giving answers.
Quick Patriots question. They want to know on the Patriots line tomorrow. Plus 5.5. Do you think they'll cover the Patriots?
No. All we're looking for is
a
growth. Nope. We're looking for growth from Drake May, staying healthy, and losing because we want that.
You want a draft pick?
Yeah,
Go for that number one pick
you
again.
Give it up. You're already done.
Oh, it's over.
We have to pay, Patriots penance. There was a 20-year period where every loss was like throw something at the wall and this is unacceptable. And it's not, it almost becomes unfun. It's just too much, thou shalt win. Right. So at this point,
I got sick of it. I got sick of it.
Jesus, I don't get.
I never got sick of it. We didn't win enough. They should have won 12 Super Bowls, Mike, not 6. 12.
Too many.
No, it's not too many. You
sound like
a communist. There's not too many.
I'm still Steve Grogan, Jimmy Plunkett. The lovable losers.
Oh, well, that's
guys
why
that got up.
Well, they're back. Yeah. They're back now.
Which is why you should go full time back to Pat Patriot, because it's associated with the era of losers, and now's the time to make the switch. But
at Bridgewater, we used to be able to get tickets day of game. That doesn't happen anymore. You can't get tickets.
Let's be honest. The only team
maybe you can again. Can you now?
You can get tickets day of game now. I mean, I look at it every Sunday morning.
They're a little, they're not what they were, but let's be honest. The only team around that you expect a win constantly are the Celtics, and
that's it.
82-0 or bust, right?
So it ain't the Red Sox, and it isn't the Patriots, and the Bruins. They're hot and cold, but
the Bruins
Patriots
are
these days. Yeah,
the Bruins unfortunately are kind of like lukewarm milk. Yeah, and that's what they've really been for the better part of 50 years. They're good, very rarely great, and they've been really good for 15 years, but they've really blown some.
Oh yeah,
what
they probably had about
19 was atrocious, but
they had the Blues beaten and they lost that series, and they had a dogfight against the Blackhawks, but they didn't have enough offense that year. And they had a few other seasons that they were looking like Stanley Cup champions. 2 years ago, they were the number one team in the league, President's Cup winner, and then they got bombed out in the first by the Panthers in the first round.
They got the most points in NHL history. It's worse. It's even worse.
Regular season never matters in hockey. Never. Yeah.
No, it's true. No, the team who wins the President's Cup never wins the Stanley Cup.
No.
Anyway,
whoever gets hot at the playoffs, they play differently too in the playoffs. It's so obvious.
Joe Flipperhead, can that number? We beat you in Super Bowl 39. Stop it, Joe.
Oh, he's got nothing on us. So we talked about Karen Reed case. Been a lot of stuff happening there too with this special prosecutor. He's now trying to get. They already tried this with Gretchen Voss back in the first trial. It didn't work, but they're asking for reporter notes and video and all this other crap from Ted Daniel and other reporters. What do you think about that, Mark?
I mean, look, it sounds desperate, to be honest with you. What do you, I mean, I read the motion papers. They state their intent is to, we're going to call Bill Reed as a witness because there were phone calls to him at 1 o'clock or whatever it was. And we need to decipher the pattern or lack thereof of other times that she would have called him at that time. And I'm going to assume rarely ever, but I'm also going to assume that there was a lot going on January 29th, including where is John and this and that. Here's the thing. This is such an own goal. I think if they do this, they have a right to do it. I mean, they can order the records. The records are going to show, I assume, some phone calls, text messages, whatever. And then you say, are they really going to call him to establish that she called you and you've never interviewed him? He's never going to consent to an interview by them, obviously. So you don't really know what he's going to say. You may have an idea from some of these clips on the media, but are you going to really call him for the purpose of saying, oh, she called him that night, so there must have been admissions of any importance? I don't know why you would do that, for the very simple reason. If anybody who knows, I mean, you've seen him talk, you've met him. Everyone who knows Bill Reed knows he's like the nicest guy in the world, and also knows that his relationship with his daughter is like really close. I mean, really close. And, generally, I don't think it's a logical stretch to say, father loves daughter and vice versa. And in times of panic or whatnot, there would be communications. So putting all that aside, so you're going to call him for this at the risk of having him just beloved by a jury, and the incredible sympathy it will garner for him, but more importantly for his daughter. I don't know why you would do that unless you know something, and they don't know something. They know what he allegedly said, in a 2-minute clip about having a series of discussions where she said, well, I might have hit something. And by the way, something is a broad term and can also include a car in a driveway that there's Ring video of backing into at John O'Keefe's house. So I don't think ultimately, when push comes to shove, they're going to do it. I wonder about the timing of it, filing that the day of the Dateline thing. Is that, I don't know. I would be really surprised if they truly called him as a witness just based on that. But, they have a right to do it. Most seasoned prosecutors, I think, would say it's not worth it. I'm not doing this. They're just going to humanize her. And they're never going to assume that she's going to testify. If you're the prosecution, you don't know, obviously, but you're never going to assume that. And all it does is give the defense a proxy, if you will, to garner sympathy for her. It would be a mistake.
Yeah. All they're going to do with that is they're trying to find anything they can. They're basically trying to scrape through the barrel to try to get anything they can. And what's going to end up happening is, if they do get anything, they're not going to find anything that's relevant, or it's going to be damning to Will or Karen anyways. But it's like anything, they're going to try to skew it and present it in a way that makes it look like it seems like it's damning to Karen. But that's all they're going to do. They're just looking for anything they can desperately to try to make a comment against Karen and try to convince the jury that, hey, guess what? There's suspicion here. There's guilt here. Look at her and her father. And it's not going to go anywhere except for.
I mean, the cynic in me says that this is a ploy to get him removed from the courtroom as a witness. And then they wait till the end of their case. And then at the last minute, they rest their case. They don't call him. But meanwhile, he's been forced to be outside the courtroom for all this time. And of course, if they did the same thing with his wife, Karen's brother, others, then next thing you know, they're essentially wiping out her primary family support, which, again, I said I'm being cynical. I don't want to believe that's the case, but this feels like, you have a couple of months to prepare a case for trial. Bill Reed's phone calls strike me on the list of importance as probably item 11 on a list of 1 to 10.
That's a interesting thought I never thought of.
I hope it's
So
not
we
true.
just try to drive that family out of the courthouse.
Let's not give him any ideas. Let's not give him any ideas.
The same way it would be distasteful that if I can see a scenario where, if the prosecution wins in the SJC, they spike the football and then dismiss the murder case anyway, and this was all an exercise and nothing. I could totally see that as well.
Yeah.
A question about the judges in the email that Morrissey sent. They're wanting to know, did the judge disclose it? Or did any of the judges disclose that email? Or did they have to?
Well, these are questions. And when you look at the end of the letter and you see laundry lists of demands, I think in that part of the letter, you'll see these kinds of questions and demands. All of that would be discoverable. And again, you wait and see how the prosecution responds. And depending on that and what gets disclosed, you consider your next course of action.
Going back to the Karen Reed stuff, ACLU jumped in on the SJC appeal, basically backing it, saying, basically saying what you've been saying, Attorney Bederow, that it should get sent back to the jury for, poll the jury.
Yeah, for a hearing. I agree with that. But, I don't think the fact that it's signed by the ACLU is that big a deal. I mean, it's good. I think any amicus briefs that you get is a good thing. It's not surprising, too, that the ACLU would find it odious that somebody who may very well have been acquitted for murder is going to get retried for murder. I mean, I'd like to think if you are a civil liberties union, that this is the kind of thing that would aggravate you. It should aggravate any American who has value in constitutional rights. But I don't think that because there's an amicus brief that all of a sudden the needle tilts and the judges on the SJC start saying, oh, well, now we're going to have to give it to her. It's not how it works. Amicus briefs are filed all the time. The ACLU is a very big party for filing amicus briefs, probably more than anyone, to be honest with you. It's a good thing, but it only goes so far. It's not, the judges are not going to sit there as they're determining the outcomes of the case and say, oh my God, the ACLU supports her, definitely. The advantage of the amicus brief is you're doubling up on the DA. I mean, you're getting another bite at the apple from another party raising points that you didn't raise. And I agree. I think they have the stronger ask, which is, in all fairness, a hearing. I mean, I don't think that the court, not the judge, would ever just grant this outright. I think what they ought to do is find out, was there an acquittal? You need that with sworn testimony, I think, from 12 jurors. And then I think you have another layer to it, which you can't ignore the obvious, which is, if you guys voted an acquittal, why the hell didn't anybody publish that? I mean, I think that's a fair question that ought to be answered, and that has to be answered satisfactorily.
And some comments about how people prefer boxes over briefs. No, it's amicus brief. I like some of the comments. People are
amicus, amicus, tomato, tomato. It's the same thing.
Tomato. Right. There's more questions I had. Maz, do you have any questions or any comments that you want to make? I want to make sure I get you into.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it. So, Mark, just getting back to Michael Morrissey and his burner email account there. We know technically it's not obviously against the law for anyone to have an email that's their own personal account, but to conduct it for district business. Have you ever heard of another district attorney anywhere in this country, New York, Massachusetts, anywhere, that's ever been bagged for having burner accounts like this? And if so, were there any repercussions for that district attorney? That's going to be a no on that, it looks like.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I have like muscle memory that I feel like Charles Hines in Brooklyn had to have done this just because he did so many other things that he shouldn't have done. So the truth is, I don't know, but I mean, this is an ex parte communication, related to a matter in which he should have been recused, demanding an investigation. Some could say pressuring judges, demanding they act, demanding next steps. It does lead to an investigation. And at the end of the day, a court clerk got fired for providing a document that, whether you agree or disagree, she should have disseminated, was a public court proceeding that a certain witness in a murder case was just upset about. So it is inappropriate. It shouldn't be happening. And of course, the concern is that if somebody had done a public records, a FOIL or FOIA, in New York, we call it FOIL, but FOIA, same thing, a Freedom of Information Act or law request. You know how those requests work. They go to a records access officer in the DA's office, and all they do are keyword searches on certain things. And if they're asking about anything Morrissey ever said about, Aidan Carney and Karen Reed, the search is going to be in mass.gov email. It's not going to be in, blah, blah, blah at iCloud. So the concern is you're never going to see it. And this is the problem when public officials use private email. They are potentially evading those the FOIL law. The problem is that it's not an exemption. So although there may be an intent to avoid that, once you've been outed, if you will, you are obligated. So at this point, it wouldn't be inappropriate for FOIA requests that now include including whatever the address is at mass.gov, and including any iCloud accounts used by the district attorney to conduct business over the time period, whatever. And so again, this is another just own goal. I mean,
so you're saying that potentially this opens him up to have that iCloud email reviewed, which means that beyond Turtleboy and all the controversy and any dirt that would be found on him in that regard, if his hand's in any other cookie jar with dirt anywhere else, which could be a plethora of things, that if they were able to access that email, or if that was subpoenaed or whatnot, let me know what the language is on that, Mark, that could bring him down for more than just anything that's shady and dirty involving Aidan in terms of emails?
Well, somebody seeking that information would have to make a valid FOIA request and have it disclosed. And, that's a process that would take 3 hours to explain. They deny it, you appeal it and sue. Or if somebody sought it in a criminal case, like you're talking about other defendants, Massachusetts does have a pretty crazy subpoena process where you basically have to get, on notice and a court hearing for any subpoena to a civilian, which is just crazy that they do it that way. But putting that aside, the law is the law. You have to satisfy a certain threshold to get access to something. So you would have to demonstrate that it's not a fishing expedition, that there is a good faith basis, and articulate why you believe there would be relevant evidence and why you're entitled to it and how you can't get it from anyone else. So I don't know if literally anybody who just started lobbing bombs in court, not literally, obviously figuratively, about, we think we're entitled to this because that guy wrote an email on this guy's case. I don't think that's necessarily going to do it. But, when there is evidence and specific evidence of emails addressing witnesses in a case against a particular defendant, and he's talking about that case and those witnesses and soliciting advice, and implying that I expect a response, well, that may be a little bit of a stronger application, don't you think?
Yeah.
Now imagine if this has been dropped in the comments a few times in the past minute here. Can you imagine if they do get to access his iCloud burner email account and they learn that DA Michael Morrissey and Auntie Bev were communicating about the Karen Reed case somewhere in there? I'm just speculating, of course, like crazy here, theorizing that there was an influence on the outcome of that case headed by Michael Morrissey. If that was found out, for example, it's just hypothetically asking you here, Mark, if they found out that Michael Morrissey influenced the outcome of the Karen Reed case and forced this judge to do something to declare it a mistrial, what kind of repercussions do you think he would face for that?
So, disclaimer, of course,
Yeah.
this is like really speculative.
Correct.
I have absolutely nothing or any reason to believe that's the case. In fact, I would be shocked. The first thing that you would want to determine is it ex parte, meaning one side. If there is a communication from a judge to a DA and the defense is included on the email, well, that changes the dynamic profoundly. I mean, there's nothing secretive about it. It still may be a FOIA issue because you're using a private email for third parties, but anything that's done where the defense would be attached, they're aware of. So that's just not, a big deal. In the hypothetical that you're talking about, if a DA, I'm not even going to say these people, if a DA was contacting a trial judge ex parte without the defense knowing and pressuring or demanding or whatnot that you take certain action in the case, then he would be almost certainly disbarred. His career would be over. The judge would be removed, and this would be a scandal of epic proportion. That would be beyond inappropriate. That probably would be the subject of a corruption investigation, a criminal investigation. Again, it's hard for me to believe that it could be that bad. On the other hand, who expected to get an email where 5 or 6 judges are being told this other stuff? But, in the speculative example that we're working in, that would be beyond inappropriate. It would be, it would result in serious professional and probably criminal consequences.
Wow. One more question. This is where I'm taking the ball in the end zone here. Who would be the party or person or entity that would file a subpoena against DA Michael Morrissey to get access to his iCloud email? Let's put it this way. What kind of party would subpoena a DA to get access to their burner account email? I'll word it that way.
Well, let me be clear. So what I don't want to do, I'm not encouraging anybody to.
Yeah. Right.
I want to be clear.
Okay.
I don't want to advise people on how to, go after the DA personally. We've argued credibly with receipts that this happened, and it's troubling. The party that would go after, in the words you're using, subpoenaing it, would be somebody on a case who believed that they had legal cause to get it under a Rule 17 subpoena. Again, that there is a need for it, it's relevant. We can't get it from any other source. And because we're articulating all these reasons that we believe there will be evidence that we're not fishing. Now, different judges handle this different ways. I mean, to go back to the Reed case, they were denied initially, were they not, about McCabe's phone? And they put together a very lengthy motion outlining all of these other things, and they had to go to a higher court to get it. And it turned out to be loaded with material. Now, there's another way that information gets gleaned that has nothing to do with Rule 17. And, you also saw this in the Karen Reed case. There's 3 letters. They're called FBI. I'm not saying that would happen here. There's nothing to suggest one way or the other. But, in the Reed case, that's what happened with Proctor and all these other people's phones, right? They got them.
Right.
Silent again. I keep hitting it. Sorry. I keep even when I hit it, I hit it. Someone kept posting that FBI right before you said that, Mark, in the chat. I thought that was perfect. FBI.
No further questions on this matter, Attorney Mark Bederow. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Strongly recommend that people not send out frivolous. Whether you like them or not, the man is the district attorney. Right. There are professional disagreements that are being handled in a court of law, and I would not do anything to be deemed harassing to the individual who happens to be DA. That would be a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love my moderators are giving me shit. I love it. She says, haha, the old mic is back. Hitting the mute button. Sorry. I'm afraid because I'm like I'm sneezing and coughing, so I'm all over the mute button again tonight.
Yeah, that's all right. I like M's avatar there with the 3 M's there with the AI version of us. We're all
Yes.
basically superheroes. Yeah.
That's done by Stephanie, I believe.
Oh, was it? Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes,
Great job,
but M's
Stephanie.
using it. Yeah. I want to thank our moderators. Our moderators are great. Scott McGinnis, Stephanie, MJ, Jen. Love them. Thank you so much. They call me COVID Prophet. Joe Flipphead. Yeah. We got to talk about what happened last night. Dateline.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think? I thought it was pretty good mostly. I mean, I see that they do a 2-hour thing and they never even mention the FBI Billy. I mean, that's just, I don't know. And they make Turtleboy look like a villain without actually telling the Turtleboy story again, which pisses me off. But I thought it was way better than that previous one.
I think it's all relative. I mean, if you're comparing it in a universe of 2020 and Dateline NBC, then it was a home run if you support Karen Reed. I mean, the 2020 thing, just editorially, it was awful. I mean, it was boring, didn't make any sense. It was impossible to follow. They really didn't dedicate any time to any of the real issues. But beyond that, I mean, although I think it was better, the Dateline show, the biggest takeaway that I have, and this goes for both shows, is that you essentially had combined about 4 hours or close to 4 hours, not really with commercials, of content on this case. And in 4 hours, there is only one person who spoke who had any actual or substantive knowledge about the case, and that was the defendant. And they, the first episode of 2020, they had you need filler time because you don't have any people. And, I know everyone laughed. They had the woman holding the picture and who was like the ex-girlfriend. I think Dateline, I don't know if they ever spoke to her, but even if they did, they had the benefit of time knowing what happened to 2020. They could have cut that out. But then, they're left with one relative who, from what I read online, is kind of a relative, but not really. But, whatever. I'm not going to disparage her. She, is related and friendly to John O'Keefe. But it's amazing that the show was basically Karen, her lawyers, and this woman. That's crazy to me, that there's just nobody willing to speak. I don't know what to make of that. I just can't believe they were able to make a show. So what they have to do is use filler time with all this stuff. But, I think they certainly brought some more attention to both sides. They mentioned phone calls, Google searches, things like that. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was awful. It was better than 2020, but I don't think either one of these was particularly great. I mean, to me, the part that I liked the best was, I thought the part where Karen and David were just kind of sitting and talking and, with them, I found that to be engaging. I mean, they looked just comfortable, sincere, in what they were doing. But overall, it was just 2 hours of, all right, whatever, and go to bed and wake up the next day. And it wasn't compelling. I mean, to me, it was okay.
Yeah, nothing new either, and a lot left out. I mean, I think it pisses me off when they do these things. They don't tell the full Turtleboy story. Like, if you're gonna criticize the guy, tell the story on who he actually is. Like, it just, that's drive-by journalism.
That's the editorial problem. They have probably, I guess, all considered maybe like an hour and 20 minutes of content. These shows are, for better or for worse, geared towards people who are not that familiar, the casual viewer. So they have to do the buildup. They're not like people who watch these episodes who know everything and can tell you what somebody said in court 6 months ago and this and that. So in that sense, yeah, you're never going to get all of it. Things are going to get left out. When they're talking about taillight pieces, I mean, I know Alan did mention and kind of rolled his eyes at how, it got over the course of 3 weeks, but that to me deserved a little more. How ridiculous that is. I think that also invites the Dighton police officer who can't, I mean, but again, where do you cut it? I mean, the stuff you mentioned about Aiden, that's fair. They had interesting commentators as experts, I thought. No, I mean, it's not even, I don't know that much was added there.
No.
That's personal criticism, but when you need filler time, I don't know, there might have been different ways to go there, I thought, but they did a better job than ABC for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mazza? Anything?
I preferred it to 2020 as well. I thought that I think both times, even when I watched 2020, I wasn't as negative about it as I was the following day or day after when I rewatched 2020. And it's the same thing here today. I felt more negative actually this morning about it than I did when I actually watched it. I think it's probably because I'm taking in a lot of it. Then the next day, kind of look back and say, geez, I mean, I ended up starting live tweeting in the middle of it last night because I was getting so flustered. And one of the things they tried to sell was, the age-old thing, which 2020 did, which is that John O'Keefe's being lost in all this. And this is a post I put out last night. I'll try to find it. But basically what they try to say is that, I'll say it like this. I'll just read what my tweet. If anyone feels that John O'Keefe is being left out of this or has been pushed in the background, let me just say it. The sinister powers that be placed Karen Read in this situation. They tried to frame her for a murder that she did not commit. Karen Read's fighting for her innocence. The powers that be caused this situation. They pushed John into the background the moment they pinned this on Karen. So they always try to sell this narrative where they have people on the other side try to state and claim that it's almost like if you're a Karen Read supporter, well, you personally, as a collective whole, are pushing John O'Keefe's memory into the background. And our argument is that we are fighting for Karen Read's innocence because the powers that be placed Karen Read in this situation and have made her a part of the narrative. And now we have to fight for her. So if there's going to be any kind of justice for John O'Keefe, it's got to first be Karen Read who's acquitted of all these charges. And it's an age-old battle that we've been fighting for over a year now. It's this constant sense that the other side likes to argue, well, John's being forgotten. You guys are blaming Karen for this. You guys are blaming an innocent woman. You want an innocent woman put in jail. And that's not, to me, that doesn't stick. That doesn't fly. That's not true justice for John O'Keefe, just taking a random woman saying, guess what? She's an outsider. Let's nab her as this weak link and put it all on her and make her go fight for her own freedom. That's not true justice. That's true corruption. That's true cover-up. And that's not what I'm going to allow stand. And that's what everybody that's watching this show or on this show is ultimately fighting for, is Karen's innocence. And that's exactly where it's at. And this age-old argument that we don't care about John O'Keefe is absolutely false, because there is no true justice for John O'Keefe until Karen Read is free of all this. That's a fight that we're not going to give up on. And the dents and the armor of this cover-up and this frame job are falling by the day, brick by brick. And they're going to continue to fall at multiple levels. We're not going to back down. We're not going to stop. We're not going to quit. We're going to be on multiple shows as long as we must to get these points across. But we're not going to sit here and have anybody tell us that we don't care about John O'Keefe. We do care about John O'Keefe, but we don't care to see an innocent woman spend the rest of her life in bars for a crime that she did not commit. And she was someone that cared about John O'Keefe just as much as anybody. And she was one person that didn't get to go to his funeral, didn't get to mourn his death, and has been in the defense ever since this whole thing started. And that is unfair to Karen. She has lived a life alternative to the life she should be living for the past 2 years, going on 3 years now. And we're not gonna forsake this woman or leave her be by herself without backing her up and without raising any money. And while I'm on this subject, donate to Karen Read's defense fund. And I'm going to leave it right there. That's Spicy Mazza for you.
Karen Read on that. I want to add one thing. The media that says we forgot about John O'Keefe, they forgot about John O'Keefe. The only time they bring up John O'Keefe is, Karen was jealous of the woman in Aruba. That's the only time they talk about John O'Keefe, the big media. So the ones that spent 2 hours the other night and 2 hours before, they don't care about John O'Keefe. They're the ones that don't care.
This concept of forgetting John O'Keefe from a lot of these people, I mean, I just reject it as projection, and frankly, by a lot of them, is ignorance. And what I mean by that is, they can have a view about Karen Read all they want. They think she committed a terrible crime, and that by defending herself, she somehow is trying to have you forget about John O'Keefe. That happens in every single murder case. Like, they prosecute someone that the family and supporters think the defendant did it. Obviously, they think the defendant cares only about herself, which, by the way, in a legal sense, that's what the trial is about whether they prove beyond a reasonable doubt her guilt or innocence. In that sense, the trial is not about the unfortunate person who was killed. But when they try to talk to people who support Karen Read and say that how dare you and this and that you're somehow forgetting all of him, the reason you should reject that is if somebody in good faith believes that she's not guilty or believes that she's innocent or believes she's being framed, what they're saying is, I believe that something happened that she's not responsible for. What the hell does that have to do with having no respect for John O'Keefe? What they're really saying is, you have to bow at the altar of she's guilty. Otherwise, you have no respect for John O'Keefe. And that's the projection and ignorance. I mean, I have incredible respect for John O'Keefe. Obviously, he was well-liked, well-loved by everyone. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt the feelings that his family has. And I don't get involved in any of that because they lost a loved one. But nobody has any right to assume that you, or anyone else, because they think that the defendant being tried is actually innocent, doesn't have somehow that means I don't have respect for John O'Keefe. I mean, if you live in a totalitarian state and you say, if you want to have respect, then you have to agree with me, so be it. But that's not how it works. So it is not logically inconsistent at all to believe that Karen Read is innocent and to have great respect and want justice for John O'Keefe. The difference between normal people, I assume there's a few that don't get angry about everything, is that there may be a difference of opinion philosophically about what justice for John O'Keefe means in terms of the defendant. But that doesn't mean that because you support her or believe in her innocence, that you don't have or believe in justice for John O'Keefe, or that you're shoving him to the side. That's projection, ignorance, and should just be ignored. That's just dumb.
Yeah. Good comment. Good. Yeah. 100%. There was video that came out this morning from one of John O'Keefe's ex-girlfriend, the girlfriend right before Karen.
Yeah, that should have been on the show. That's amazing. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, we all know her.
Story.
Like, I talked to her on Facebook and Twitter. She's very nice. Like, are you surprised they didn't include that in the TV show?
I mean, look, just as a matter of television editing and trying to make entertainment out of this, I mean, there's real lives involved, but let's be honest, the TV people, they want the controversy, they want to get you to not know or question. And what could have questioned more than someone who liked John O'Keefe before Karen Read showed up, and then somehow on her own, with her, no one telling her what it was, her own beliefs came to the decision that I think she's getting railroaded to the point where I'm going to support her and I'm going to show up in court. I'm going to assume all the people on the other side know exactly who she was. And should that have been part of this? Yeah. But even more importantly, how the hell did that not get into 2020 in light of the fact that they were pulling out girlfriends from 20 years ago? I mean, that I don't understand. I had no idea. I forget. I think her name was Lindsay.
It's Lindsay. And, she's professional. She's successful.
Articulate.
She's beautiful. She's smart. She's very nice. I like Lindsay a lot. Like, I'm a big Lindsay fan.
I had no idea.
I've hit her up several times to come on the show. Like, she was getting pushback from the trolls today. I saw them. They were going after her, calling her, you want the attention. She is like avoided the spotlight like you would not believe. Like, I've asked her a lot to come on the show. I would love to have her on the show. So
stunned that didn't make its way in for a couple of minutes to even at least note that in creating for the viewer the conflict about who do you believe? Because to have an ex-girlfriend, a recent ex-girlfriend of John O'Keefe on her own, look into this and reach that conclusion, it doesn't mean you have to agree with her, but that makes for really compelling what's going on here. And I think they missed that. And for people to harass her for having the temerity to have individual thought and not just fall in line because I dated John O'Keefe. Again, once again, it's the projection and the ignorance. You're with us or you're with them. You don't use your mind. I mean, they want a totalitarian thought process. You have to be with us. And if you're not, you're a moron, you're a grifter, you're this. That's their pushback to anyone who doesn't agree with them. And that's just stupid.
When I was new to X, talking about this case a year ago, last summer of 2023, those trolls that eventually would go after me very rabidly online in the later months, they tried to recruit me. They tried to treat me like this guy. I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're new. You don't understand. Come on our side. Like, you don't need to listen to Aiden and all these people. Then they started to realize I was just like, I got my own mind about this, and nobody's telling me what to think about this. And I am not switching sides, never going to switch sides. And it's always been free care and raid because that's what I truly believe. And I don't care how bad they insulted me. And then I ended up blocking them like a couple months later. So
me, though,
that was the end of that story. Yeah.
I mean, it's just evidence-based. I mean, you can draw your own conclusion. And if somebody were to present to me any compelling evidence, I mean, you just call balls and strikes. That would be bad. Maybe they have a case. I mean, even when we first started talking, I looked into it. My first thought was, I don't know if she's actually innocent or not, but I know she's never getting convicted because this case sucks. I mean, that was clear within, just when you, again, have a certain kind of brain and do this for a living and analyzing this case was flawed from the get-go. I mean, you could just see it. And, a year later, whatever it is, I haven't really seen anything to change that. If anything, it's growing, the needle continues to point to, I think she's probably actually innocent. I think there's, and the idea, oh my God, she said he went in the house and told the other show that he only opened the door and didn't go in the house. Again, you've got to avoid like Twitter law degrees and Twitter analysts. That's really, is that a minor inconsistency? Maybe. Is that really so hard to understand and grasp? Not really. It's just not that big a deal. And if that's your smoking gun about why she's guilty, you're going to have to do a lot better than that. That's just not going to do it.
There's a lot of new people on Twitter, so I'm just going to give one little hint that you should look at on Twitter to know if someone's full of shit. If it's like a run-on paragraph that goes on and on and on and on and on and on, just ignore it. Because nobody serious is writing paragraphs on Twitter. Like anyone that writes paragraphs, like there's a certain guy, I don't even know if he does paragraphs. It just might be like one run on. I don't know. Does he actually even indent at all? I don't know. It's kind of crazy though. There's a comment, Mark, with a comment. Well, switching back to a domestic violence caper. How do they explain no DUI tests?
Well, this is, analyzed like a cop would. This is part of the whole fundamental flaw in the case. They have no cogent, clear theory, which you need. I mean, they just can't decide what it is. I mean, if this is an intentional murder, okay, then it has to be domestic violence. It has to be anger, jealousy, and all that. If it's really just, I had a few too many and this and that, then, that's not going to be murder. And then the question that Scott is raising comes in, which is, and he, again, coming from a police officer context, when they see her, if you trust what they're telling you, she's in talks. I mean, she's 0.08 at the hospital, they say, by their, extrapolated test an hour or whatever later. So by that point, she's going to be a little higher. Did anybody smell alcohol in her breath? I don't know. Did her coordination seem off? I don't know. Was her speech slurred? Well, she was excited, but that's not slurred speech. She obviously, other than what you think happened or didn't happen with John O'Keefe, drove fine. There was no issues with that, unless you count bouncing into John O'Keefe's car in a panic to go look for him. Different issue, I suppose. But if you saw those signs, and then you get to the real point, which is they're claiming she said, "I hit him." The idea that there wasn't a single police officer present who said, "Ma'am, come over here. I'm not saying you arrest her yet. Just come over here. What do you mean you hit him?" Because you may not even know that means a car. Can you tell me what you mean? And if she says, "Oh my God, I think I backed into him," right? But I hit him, and she's drunk. Ma'am, can you put your hands behind your back? You're going. I think you're silenced again, but they didn't do any of that.
Get off mute, Mike.
They didn't do any of this. And the reality is, if they tried an experiment and just like tried prosecuting for Karen Reed for driving while intoxicated, she'd be acquitted in 2 minutes. I mean, the evidence of her, the only evidence that's in the record at this point, you can see her having a few drinks, whatever, or several, whatever the word is. But the only real evidence at this point is this extrapolated blood alcohol test. And I think people are kind of burying the lead on that test too. You can Flipperhead is.
We're all laughing about me tonight. I think I broke the record tonight. This is how many mutes? Is that 5? How many is that?
At least 3. No less than 3. You were on mute, sir.
You can argue about the science all you want, and did they even have consent? Did they wait too long? All of that is secondary. In order to do any scientific test, you need to have foundational fact premises that are absolute. And in a test like this, the most absolute fact you need is, when did she stop drinking alcohol?
Correct.
You need that. If you can't prove that, stop. The rest of it doesn't matter. And the only evidence in this case of when she stopped drinking alcohol comes from a guy named Michael Proctor claiming so. So, you know what? We're done here.
That's right.
We're done here. That's another Bederow. That is a Bederow. We're done here.
Exactly.
I mean, all kidding aside, are they even going to call this guy?
No.
So
hopefully.
What theory are they really going on? I mean, if you're going on intentional murder, they're lovey-dovey in the bar. Even if she was going to kill him, it's not going to be in a blizzard, knowing that those people are in the house. You drove there to bring him to the house. They're there. You don't know if anyone's awake across the street. You have all these other witnesses, the Nagel kid and the other 2, who see her there. They see her leave. They see her creep up or whatever. None of this makes any sense. None of it. Literally none of it. So I don't know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
It's so funny how the national TV hosts always say, the stuff that people didn't see, but no one saw the body on the lawn.
Right.
It's just like that's the weirdest thing to me. It's like that nobody saw that body on the lawn leaving.
What the defense will probably do, what they should do at the second trial, is make sure that a crime scene visit occurs later in the case. And if it occurs early, the DA wants to do what they did last time, which is do it real early before anyone's heard anything. They need to go back, because as soon as the jury is aware of Brian Albert's testimony about the dog not hearing, not waking up, I didn't hear anything, everyone else in the house, nobody heard anything. As soon as they see the layout of that yard and they see that the bedroom window, you could probably spit from up there and hit the flagpole. It's that close where John allegedly was, and how small that front yard is, and how you would have to literally walk almost right by John's body, all of them, to a man, woman, and kid, and not see it.
Yeah. Nobody saw anything. Nobody heard anything.
They need to go to the crime scene after that kind of testimony is already.
That's what kills me about these national shows, because they're like, all these people in the house would have to be lying. All these people didn't see the body, though. I mean, it cuts both ways. You know what I mean? Like, if they want to say, like, there's so many people in the house that would have to be lying, there'd be so many people in the house that would have to not see a body.
Look, anybody can spin that cliche any way they want. But I think, even as Alan correctly said last night, you got to go where the evidence is. And if the evidence leads to what happened, then that's what happened. And you know, it's not an impressive fact that none of them allegedly saw John O'Keefe. That makes no sense. All of these deleted calls and butt dials, they don't make sense. You know, Jennifer McCabe whispering to her sister, Nicole, no one's coming out, given that Nicole should know nothing about it. That doesn't make any sense. All of these text messages about she's telling them everything and tell them he didn't go in the house. They're searching. They're in this lawn. That doesn't make any sense. Going to John O'Keefe's mother to make sure, you know, we get a timeline doesn't make any sense. You know, going up to Juliana Nagel and saying, give me your phone. I got to get your messages. That doesn't make any sense. Jennifer McCabe saying, I said I hit him. Nobody wrote that down.
That's
okay.
Right.
The defense is going to impeach her with Michael Proctor and Buchanan for that. None of this makes any sense.
I love that what Alan said too. None of it got picked up on any of the video.
No.
That was a great point. That was a beautiful point by Alan Jackson.
Gee, what are the chances?
Yep.
Because she never said it. They're lying. It wasn't in the reports. It wasn't on the recording.
It's insane. And look, you know, they're going to map this out better, I think, at a second trial. And I would think that they're going to just bludgeon the DA's office. I don't care that they have a better lawyer trying the case. You know, you're given very bloodier. You know, an opportunity to really fine tune what they're doing. And also, let's not kid ourselves. They have the advantage. They know the case better than the prosecutor will know it. And, you know, you can play catch up. You can be dedicated 3 or 4 months. Nobody knows the case like these skilled lawyers. And they have a very hands-on client who knows everything too.
Yeah, so, like Karen too. In addition to Yannetti and Jackson and Little, you have Karen Reed. It's just like the 4 of them.
Weinberg? Yep.
Yeah. So what's that? Let's interview Mike's ex-girlfriends. Let's not.
No.
That's maybe the Australian one should be fun. Get a little accent going. I got an ex from Melbourne, but the rest of them, you'd be very bored. Believe me. Not gonna be like Lindsay. She got that hair. She's just amazing. Lindsay was amazing. Everyone should watch that. It's on Twitter. I posted it on our Facebook. If you haven't seen that interview with Lindsay, definitely check that out. Here's another question that came in from Susie Q. Why hasn't the defense officially requested the policies and procedures from Canton PD and Mass State Police and have someone testify as to how those procedures were not followed?
I mean, are we even sure they even exist after what you watched in the first trial? If there are any procedures? No, it's a fair question. I suppose you could do that and it would make for effective cross-examination to add to what they did. But even without that, I mean, any juror understands that solo cups, blood, stop and shop bags, not temperature regulated, sitting open in a sally port, leaf blowers, pictures that just show snow with no perspective of where or what it is, no pictures of John in the actual yard. You know, you could go on and on. And I skipped the biggest one of all, never securing the crime scene, which puts it all into doubt. You know, Proctor and holding on to evidence for weeks and weeks. And then wouldn't you know, it tends to have things that he claimed. Whether they get official policies or not, I mean, it's an evidentiary shit show. They can't fix that. I mean, there's nothing that a new prosecutor can do to fix that. And the irony is that the one who's going to be prosecuting this would be salivating to be sitting at the defense table to take a crack at you know, the Canton and state police people who made an absolute joke out of the crime scene here.
Someone just brought up the inverted video. How would you go at that, Bederow, with let's say Buchanan or whoever might be on the stand? Yeah.
Quit. Run away. Do something else. This is a disaster for them.
Yeah.
I know there was some recent discovery that related to this. Are they trying to prep for the argument that, well, that's how it always is, which begs another question? I'm not sure that helps you. It just furthers the argument that the Canton police are a joke. I mean, why is your camera flipped backwards at all times? I mean, that's like on the level of solo cups. What are you doing? That makes no sense. But it's worse than that. It's not just inverted. There's people apparating in and out of the video. It's clearly overlaid in some way. And even if they have an excuse for this, they're never going to get past the fact that it was in fact inverted. And Buchanan testified that that was a fair and accurate depiction of what was going on in the garage at that time. And then a day later, when the light went on in his head, he couldn't even identify himself and Proctor anymore. This is bad. It also is never going to change that by inverting the video, whether it was an accident or not, just happened to inure to their benefit. It just happened to conceal the right rear taillight, which they claimed had been destroyed, that they never photographed, that the Dighton cop doesn't agree with. Proctor's standing over there right next to it. It doesn't change the fact that, they changed the timeline on when they towed the car, and they actually had it for an extra hour. And, they were playing some video earlier, and I never even knew this because I wasn't paying attention, but it might have been Nathan Reed who said it on one of these other clips they were playing elsewhere. It was background for me at the time. By changing it from like 4:30 to 5:30 in January, that's light to darkness. That's a big difference. That's not a small, that's not a, Scrivener's error or typo or, this whole idea that like I made a typo by hitting 3 wrong numbers that are not next to each other. You put all this together and it's a shit show. That's my, that's the legal word for it. It's a shit show.
Yeah.
Shit show. The
That
legal
is exactly
word.
what it is. It makes it, this all just comes back to 2 words: reasonable doubt.
That's
On
right.
all 3 counts. It's all about reasonable doubt, and that's it. And all this that you've said the last 5 minutes here all establishes reasonable doubt to acquit Karen Reed of all these charges. Game over.
I'm glad you said that, and we didn't even mention the ARCA thing, which is per se, in my mind, reasonable doubt. But what you said is important because, when you see all this online fighting and yapping, again, never trust Twitter law degrees. Everybody's talking about she did it or didn't do it. Okay, in a court of law, I know this sounds crass. Nobody gives a shit, okay? What you care about is whether you can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And a jury could totally, I'm not saying this is the case here, a jury could totally believe that she probably did it. In fact, I'm damn certain, but being the key word, this doesn't make sense. And in theory, that's possible. If you start thinking like that, that's not guilty. Okay. So all these people on Twitter, if you're listening, what they need to do is be better. And if you're going to use a Twitter law degree, at least sound like you know what you're talking about, which is don't tell us she did it, and because of this, she did it. Explain to us why there is no reasonable doubt, why the ARCA stuff is not reasonable doubt, why Proctor's and Buchanan's credibility over the taillight is not reasonable doubt, factored in with the Dighton cop. We could go on and on and on. And I would expect in a summation by, a master at a second trial that there will be more of that emphasis than necessarily solving the crime.
Susie Q makes a good point here about the rubber ducky investigation, how thorough and on point the police reports were, and the Walsh investigations as well. And you see the difference in the investigation quality with Karen Reed.
It's undeniable. And I know a couple of weeks ago, I remember because she was doing something. I was driving home from Foxborough actually after another, stellar Patriots performance. And she was going over the Walsh stuff, and it was eye-opening to hear the same cast of characters actually give a shit at what they were doing, presumably because they believed, most likely correctly, although even he gets due process, that Brian Walsh was a psychopath, murdering dirtbag. And they built a nice case against him, putting aside Proctor's credibility and the fact that he probably was looking for nudes in that case too. But then you juxtapose it against this case where, again, officer down, that's all hands on deck. I mean, I know we've talked about it before, but nothing gets a better investigation than officer down, except in Canton, when you happen to be officer down on another cop's lawn, apparently. And they did nothing. I mean, you had Tully, if you remember, saying, I don't even need to go in the house. Like, who cares? He's got a cocktail glass in his hand. He's got one shoe on, a soft hoodie in freezing cold weather. And, I'm not interested. I mean, it never would have occurred to him that, my understanding is that, like, John O'Keefe would never wear a coat, just from watching these shows, that was just his. I don't really wear heavy winter coats either. I try, unless it's freezing, but that doesn't mean you want to be outside when it's 14 degrees and snowing. Doesn't that tend to suggest that if he got out in that kind of, that he would want to go in as opposed to wander around the yard and just stand there? All these things. So they can do real work, but they, for whatever reason, chose not to here. And it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. It's usually a duck. The reason that they didn't want to do the real work here, so the theory is from the defense, is because blame the girl. And they were done. Proctor had his tunnel vision, and that was that.
Comment on if true, how did the jurors think it was appropriate to stick on lesser includeds?
I don't know. None of this makes any sense to me about where things stand with, the 8493. I don't know. And, you've heard some of the interviews of some of the jurors, and I don't want to criticize jurors for what they deliberated, but based on what was reported, some of the things didn't seem to make much sense from their analytical standpoint, but, we weren't in the room, so we don't know what they're talking about. I don't know. I can only think confusion, not understanding the role of alcohol in the second charge, perhaps not understanding as a legal concept what causation is. It still has to be cause to death. It can't be 10 steps removed, and just because you started a game of, a link in the chain, that an hour later something else happened that never would have happened if you didn't do something an hour ago, therefore you caused the death. I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. I mean, and you just pick, hopefully, a better jury and explain things and address this. I assume, again, good lawyers use past experience moving forward. I would think that it is going to be, if a specific task of the defense, to make it clear that the evidence of intoxication is not strong, but that even if it exists, why she's not guilty of that charge. I mean, I think that's an obvious lesson you have to take from the first one.
The guy in the attic is going all crazy about infotainment center data that's getting re-looked at.
Okay, whatever. I mean, I mean, look, I'm not that technically inclined, and I know some people have said that bytes and bits, and that there's this belief that the new expert might have screwed the pooch on this and kind of messed it up. And if that's true, I don't know if that's true. I'm just not tech. I haven't studied it and don't have the time to at the moment. I'll rely on others. That is going to be tough to top in terms of humiliation. That expert would have discredited himself right away, like out of the box. And if that's the case, man, that's embarrassing. That's more embarrassing than asking for phone records from 2002. I mean, that's just a typo. That would be really bad if you have an expert and you're banging the table saying there's more data. This guy knows it, and it turns out he can't do the computations on bits and bytes. And it turns out that he's just wrong. I mean, think of that cross-examination.
Excellent. So I think we covered a lot of territory tonight. Do you guys have anything that you wanted to bring up that didn't get a chance to get discussed tonight? Anything?
Probably just not us appreciating being called a mob or trolls on a Dateline special. It's being, played before a national audience. That definitely was not a fair assessment of who we are as a collective group of individuals that have come together to support Karen Read. I definitely took exception to that. A lot of us did, and a lot of us should, regardless of our level of interest in this case. They're basically saying anybody that wears a shirt that says "Free Karen Read" or a pink shirt's a mob or a troll. And let's be honest here, there's only one set of trolls, and they're on the other side, and a lot of them are trying to use whatever powers they can to throw a lot of people in, personally Turtleboy in jail, quite frankly. But yeah, I took exception to that. I don't appreciate us being portrayed that way. The media needs to take a little bit more responsibility in how they portray us and be a little bit more objective instead of trying to make us seem like we're out of control or whatever. We're a passionate group. We're a dedicated group. We spent more days out there than any other opposing group to support Karen. We've had people out there in extreme heat and extreme cold and all the kinds of weather in between to support Karen Read, support Aiden, and we're going to continue to do that. But I don't appreciate the media saying that about us. And I think that their editor should have edited something like that out there and just said, that mob's in troll. That's just not fair at all. That's absolutely unacceptable. And they didn't even talk about the fact that other individuals were out there and conducted behavior that was basically questionable. And I don't think they were very objective or fair to us. And I'll leave it there.
Excellent. Yeah, it's why can't we call them the drive-by media? So that's what it feels like a lot. They just
it is.
Yeah.
They just don't know it. I mean, they obviously crash for it. They cram. They spend some time, but it's not the same as people who pay attention as many. I mean, this case is so unique in that regard. There are so many people who on a day-to-day basis follow every development. And of course, there's many developments because there's just so much craziness. And like you said, even yesterday, I mean, look at all the crazy stuff going on in one day. But, the mainstream media is never going to be the same. I mean, they're just never going to get in the weeds like that.
Yeah.
This super chat question came in for you, Mark. They want to know consensus isn't science, not because of 4 out of 5 dentists doesn't mean anything. I'm more interested in why the 5th dentist doesn't improve. I don't know. What do you want to comment on that?
Well, I mean, I don't think any of their science, I think I understand what's being said here. It doesn't push them over the finish line. I mean, their science is going to be completely meaningless unless and until they knock out the ARCA stuff. Okay. So, what is the infotainment guy going to do with respect to that? I mean, are you going to establish that the car went 24 miles an hour screeching in the snow in front of 34 Fairview Road at whatever time, and apparently hit John O'Keefe to the point where he was launched 20 to 30 feet and nobody saw or heard? I know the whole story with the Ring camera didn't pick up anything. If you have Ring cameras, something else about Ring cameras. They hear as well as see. Right. And my Ring cameras, I'll hear a bird chirping, next door, right? Or any kind of animal.
Coyotes. We get a lot of coyotes.
Whatever it is. I mean, none of this would have been triggered. So I don't even know what the infotainment, what is he going to establish? What is this getting them other than nothing if you can't knock out the ARCA guys and you can't make Jennifer McCabe unimpeachable and you can't explain how taillight pieces get recovered over the course of 3 weeks? I mean, what's the argument for that? I mean, who's getting up with a straight face as a real lawyer and saying that makes perfect sense? When Tully's team found taillight from the CERT search or whatever they call it, the taillight is missing like 80% or whatever the percent is, and you find a couple little pieces. What cop worth his salt is saying, all right, boys, pack it in. We're done. Let's go. It's Miller time. and then doesn't say at a minimum, gee, maybe we should go back there in the daylight and dig and find the rest of it. And then no, it'll come to us. It'll come to us over the course of 3 weeks. Who in the hell believes that? And the thing that is so fascinating for me is that, you're bringing in a ringer who is a real lawyer. He can't possibly believe that's credible, because in any other case, he'd be sitting here like me saying, I'm going to destroy these cops. This is ridiculous that they are so bad that they just every day drive by and pick up a little more and pick up a little more. And I'm not troubled by the text messages. I'm not troubled about the hour difference in the tow. I'm not troubled. This is ridiculous. And Lally, I get it. You work there, you donate money to the boss, you make the donuts. This is your job. This is your lot in life in service to the crown. How does somebody who is a skilled lawyer, who he is, let's not disparage his skills. I'm not even criticizing his intelligence. I'm just asking, how does he look in the mirror and say, I actually believe this? That, as a lawyer, again, and I believe I'm going to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, unless, there's some kind of smoking gun. And really the only smoking gun here is the ARCA stuff and the issue over this Google search.
We've had this question come up before. Why didn't they, I think talking about the defense, why didn't they show the Dighton cop the tail light?
I think it was a mistake. I mean, look, these lawyers are confident enough and skilled enough to know that there sometimes are changes that you make. They're not egomaniacs in the sense they take the criticism. I think they'd be the first one to tell you, yeah, you're right. And I expect they would. I mean, I don't know why when he described it and it didn't look like Proctor was selling, that you wouldn't do that. I mean,
isn't it also a little risky though, if you don't know what he's going to say?
It is, except once he gave a description that didn't at all look like the pictures from the Sally Port. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously you don't want to create risk, and maybe there are things that they know that we don't know. So I don't know the answer, but based on what came out at the trial, it makes you wonder why they wouldn't do that, because what he described is not even in the stratosphere of what Proctor said and showed.
Good point. We covered everything. I mean, covered last night. We covered the Karen Reed stuff. We've covered even a lot of the Turtleboy stuff. Final thoughts. Do you have any final? We'll go to Mazza first. Do you have any final thoughts tonight, or anything else you want to promote? Any standouts? I know we're trying to raise money for Karen Reed. FreeKarenReed.net is the website if you want to donate. You can also kick in donations to Aiden Carney's Defense Fund. Just Google it. Do the Google. You'll find it. Turtleboy Defense Fund. It pops right up. I'm sure Mazza has some final thoughts tonight as well.
Yeah, just to get everybody pumped up. Honestly, any standouts that you can attend, go to them. Any support that you can apply to Rich. It was basically going to be, I think it's this upcoming Wednesday, I believe, that's going on, but November 6th as well. Karen at the Supreme Court. That's going to be a huge day for the defense there. So those are kind of my final thoughts. We keep doing what we've always been doing, which is being present, being active, being proactive, and being out there. And I think over time, a lot of times we want things to happen quick. We want this all to end in a moment's notice. We've been dedicated for over a year now. We're going to continue to be dedicated. And I just keep telling everybody, to keep your head up, keep positive, keep active. We're breaking through. We're getting there piece by piece. It's going to take a lot longer. That's fine. But don't lose heart over it. Stay strong mentally. And we're going to keep pushing through. Stay active. Just do what you guys keep doing. You guys are the best. We all get each other's back. We're going to continue to have each other's back. And free Karen Reed, free Turtleboy. That's all I got to say for final thoughts tonight, Mike.
And Maz has got his Twitter and YouTube. Make sure you follow him there. Do you have any? I know you had a live stream. I heard people talking about it today. You did a live stream today?
Yeah, I talked about Dateline this morning. I was on at 11:15 a.m., which is a rarity that I ever do a show at that particular time. But I woke up with a lot of energy this morning and a lot on my mind, and I said I'm going to do a show at 11:15. So yeah, I did that this morning. Talked about Dateline. I know a few of us had a few things to comment on Sue O'Connell for sure. We didn't appreciate some of her comments, but not that they were all that bad, but just I feel like there's a level of unfavorability where she could be a little bit more favorable or at least balanced, I'd say. And I think that's been a little bit of an issue that a lot of us have had with Sue recently over the past basically the past 2 or 3 weeks, essentially. She's seen us in person. She knows a lot of us. She knows our behaviors. And I just think that a lot of times we need a little bit more of a positive or at least a balanced or even keel comment about our particular side. And that's where I'll leave it.
And Nurse Kim is watching. She just commented as well. Thank you, Nurse Kim. We got some great audience tonight. We had Karen's sister watching as well. She gave us a couple super chats. Karen Reed's sister tonight was watching. Liz. So pretty amazing to see some of the folks watching tonight. We got some all-stars. Turdy Bederow, do you have any final thoughts tonight for us?
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing going on to me is watching what appears to be the first cracks in the foundation of the infrastructure of the entire Norfolk County criminal justice system. I would keep your eye on this. The DA is under a lot of heat. There are announced candidates that are out raising money. The first ADA is gone. The press person is gone. The head of the detective homicide unit is booted. Proctor is obviously dead man walking in terms of, his future in the state police. His supervisor has been sanctioned. Other cops have been sanctioned. And, where else is this going? And that can have a profound effect on all of these cases that are going on. I mean, you already know before you even get to this that when you have a county where you need special prosecutor after special prosecutor after special prosecutor, something is off. That's not normal to have to need a special prosecutor for virtually every case you prosecute because there are conflicts everywhere. So, I think you're starting to witness the real cracks in the foundation of this whole thing. And I can't imagine being someone in the rank and file working in that office as a diligent, dedicated lawyer and say, this is what I'm dealing with. I mean, just what an embarrassment it must be to have to know that, allegations are being made of misconduct, personal use of, private email servers, inappropriate contacts with judges, misrepresentations made by people. At what point, if you're in that office and you're one of the good people, do you just say, this place ain't for me? It's just everything that's going on there seems to be, the cracks appear to be growing, and I'll be very curious to watch where it goes. And we talked about it earlier. The biggest thing to me is when they replace Tully, and if they bring in a good person, somebody, and don't disparage all cops. It's not right. Most of them, even in the state police, they're not all bad. And you can't, you can't think like that. But if they fumigate, like we've been saying they should, anybody who comes in to take over that unit is going to say, okay, Colonel, get rid of all of them and let me pick some other people. And at some point, all of this stuff is going to start having really serious consequences for these cases. And you can start with Karen Reed. Proctor is toast. Buchanan is punished. Tully is punished with probably more coming. It goes on and on. It could factor in some of these other cases with cell phone extractions and missing messages and those kinds of things. And this is going to start having a real problem. And what I'm waiting for, and to me, the silence was deafening by the two announced candidates. I know you're going to speak to one that are running for DA. I don't know why they've been silent the last few days. If ever there was a time to criticize what's going on, it's now. And if you're running for DA, you need name recognition, you need money, you need a voice, and you need to convince people why you're better. And I think it was a lost opportunity for both of them over the last few days to just sit it out. Good advice. I think I agree. They should be like, if no
if Channel 10's not calling them, they should just get up and on their
Listen,
own YouTube
if
channel.
you want
Like
the job, go out and grab it. Explain
Yeah.
why it should be you and what's wrong with this office. And that's how you do it. And again, I'm always comparing Norfolk to Brooklyn. That's how it happened. People started speaking out. They started campaigning, and people learned, and things came to light, scandal after scandal. And eventually, even the entrenched hack, people have said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And that's how Ken Thompson, he actually died a year into office, took over the Brooklyn DA's office and started them on the path of being, a much better place. They're not perfect, but they're much better. So I would hope that the people that are running for this office would be a little more
aggressive
engaged
and out front.
And grab it. I mean, if you want it, grab it and explain why you should have it.
Yeah. And if no one's interviewing you, go on YouTube. Create your own channel. It's not hard to speak to the people now.
I also blame the media. I mean, that's an obvious phone call to be making for these stories, I think, in all fairness, that if you're writing these stories about scandals, about private email and whatever, as a journalist, I think one of the most obvious phone calls is somebody running for DA and say, what do you think about that? Is that a problem? Would you do that? What are the issues here? What say you? I mean, to me, that's a ground ball.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I called. That's why I hit her up. I mean, I was like, we got to get her on the show. I wonder if any other media has done that. I wonder if because Channel 10, they've given us some criticism. Have they actually done what they, are suggesting we do? Have they called that candidate? I wonder, like I did. I wonder, do you have any questions or like either one of you for this candidate that I should be asking her on Wednesday night?
I'll put something together for you.
Yeah.
Like I got a few questions for her for sure, or things I think that you could ask her that I think would basically be good questions for her to address. Yeah.
There are some obvious things. I mean, look, there are certain red flags which lead to corruption that it doesn't necessarily have to be, but it creates the friendliness, which can lead to the cutting corners for my friends and which leads to corruption. I mean, the most obvious thing is about the use of private email. What does that do for you?
Right. Oh, yeah.
You look at I saw some of this news today. Look at what's going on in the Norfolk DA's office. The chief assistant DA donates $5,000 to her boss. That is gross. That's not how a DA's office is supposed to work. The subordinate employee is not supposed to be stuffing dollar bills into the pockets of the DA. We've seen some of the state police, other prosecutors, like they should be asked about that. Is that something you would pledge not to do? Do you see anything wrong with that? I mean, to me, the questions that ought to be asked are the corruptions. I think another question that ought to be asked is...
I'm writing them all down, Mark. I don't know if you can tell. I'm writing them all down right now. I'm going to be ready to go. Keep going.
You're running a DA's office that is charged with prosecuting all the crimes in Norfolk County. You're paid by the taxpayers. You're accountable to the taxpayers. You get a mistrial of some degree in the biggest murder case of all. And your response is, well, I'm going to spend more taxpayer money and hire an outsider. What do you think of that? Why is that? What does that tell you about the makeup of this office, the confidence in the DA's office? And what do you tell the voters of the county about, I represent this office, but we're not good enough to do this case. We need help from this. I mean, you could go on for hours about the questions. Sure. You could ask her, well, that's enough for now, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Mark, bring you guys on. I think I might have to bring you guys on to ask some questions. I think that's what I've decided already.
Right.
Yeah. Wednesday night, we may do this again with the candidate.
The 3 M's and one future DA. Yeah.
If they're willing to have the conversation, that's fine. I mean, look, you want to push people running for office and explain why they're better. And if they can't articulate why, then, they may not be right for it. So it's not supposed to be easy. The answer can't just be because I'm better than Morrissey. I get it. No. You still have, you need to pick the right person. And,
gotta have policies and procedures. Right. I love that about the campaign funds. Like you shouldn't be collecting funds from Lowry.
That is one of the biggest red flags in corruption in the DA's office is when the people that work there are not only working there as prosecutors, but they are part of the political machine in service to the boss. Okay. And donating politically to the boss. That is gross. That would never happen. It's actually in New York unethical. I don't know if they're just violating the ethics in Massachusetts. In Brooklyn, this was a problem. Many of them got in trouble for doing this. But in Norfolk County, it's Chinatown, right? Forget it.
It is Chinatown, Jake.
Bingo.
Joe?
That's it. I just got
We
bingo
got it.
on my Bederow bingo card. Mark.
There it
Thank
is.
you. There it is.
You
It
had
was
a whole
organic. It was
thread.
organic. It just came up.
It was.
But it can't just be this is the way things are done, which in Norfolk County is the response to everything. That's how we do it here.
That's right.
That doesn't make it right. Just
No.
because that's how you do it here.
They make their own set of rules and they live by them and they want to operate that way. But these rules are not applied in other counties, at least that we know of. But these
Right.
guys just go, we have our own set of rules and this is how we run things. And it doesn't matter what your constitutional rights are or anything like that. This is how we do things here in Norfolk County. Like they're the highest power of authority in this nation, which is absolutely false.
I mean, you should also ask her beyond the use of the private email. What about the substance of that email? What about like leaning on judges, demanding things, by the way, in a matter in which you had already recused yourself? I mean, if you read what was publicly filed the other day, the recusal stuff was taken care of days before that email went out. You know, are you acting as a private prosecutor to the McCabe family? I don't know. That's what it felt like in reading all that.
Sure does. Definitely feels like that.
Ask
personal attorney for Jennifer McCabe.
Well, but in a similar vein, you should absolutely ask both candidates or whoever's willing to talk to you, what do they think about that hostage video press conference, which is one of the most unethical statements I've ever seen a prosecutor make. What do you make of that? And why do you think that happened? And the real question is, why did it happen? Was he pressured to do that too by the McCabe's and Alberts because they were getting some heat? I don't know.
Sure seems like it.
These are the questions that I would think a candidate for DA who's trying to separate themselves from, how things are now would answer, I would hope.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not going to answer questions about specific cases. That's just not what they're going to do because they're going to inherit those cases potentially.
But policies and procedures, how they'll act compared to Morrissey is definitely fair game.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. It's nice to have another Saturday night with the 3Ms.
Absolutely.
It feels like old times, and I think the audience loved it.
Absolutely. Love everybody. It's always great getting together with you guys.
If he's still here. Inside baseball again with, I'm getting hazed by Dan.
Yeah.
Awesome. I really enjoy it every time. So thank you guys for being here again tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, Mike. Mark, take care of yourself. All right. We look forward to more letters from you. That's for sure.
Yeah. Looking for number 4.
They have to be organic. They have to be a reason. But as you can see
they keep giving you reasons though.
They usually give you a reason. So who knows?
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you guys. Have a great night. Thank you all. Free Karen Reed.
Free Karen Reed. We're the Young Jerks. I want to thank, we had a couple Venmos come in. Barbara said $10 on Venmo. Thank you so much, Barbara M. Also, Michelle sent $10. Thank you so much, Michelle. Very much appreciated. Thank you for all the super chats. We had 68 of them. Jesus Christ. You guys are great. Thank you so much. I couldn't even post them all. I tried to post them all. I tried to ask as many questions as possible, even non-super chats. I tried tonight, guys. There was a lot going on. But we get a lot in. I mean, we covered a lot of territory tonight. Bederow answered a lot of questions tonight. Yeah, great show. Bederow, Mark Bederow, and great show, Mazza, too. Mazza does a really good job, too. I really appreciate them. I really enjoy it, too. Even when I screw up, like tonight, I screwed up so many times with the mute button. I'm trying not to cough and sneeze and all that other crap, and I kept hitting the mute button. There was one point, a couple times, I knew I was on mute, and before they even said anything, I'm trying to hit the button, and I'm turning off Maz's. I was a mess tonight. I couldn't stop hitting the mute button. But it was fine. 3 is better than 2. Usually 3 is a crowd. It's not a crowd with us. We do a good job, all 3 of us. It's like it's perfect. We're a good team, the 3 of us. COVID Crawford. Yeah, I love Mazza too. I love Nurse Kim's in there. I love watching Nurse Kim. She's made some comments tonight. And I love our mods, Stephanie and Jen and MJ and Mr. McGinnis. I got to get him McGinnis on the show. He's a good local. I like him. If you haven't, please hit the like button on the way out. I think I'm going to take a couple more nights off. Everyone's hitting me up to be a guest on their show right now. I want to do them all, but I'm I'm trying to like take 1 or 2 nights, do a show, and then take 1 night off because I'm still feeling this COVID. This morning, I mean, I don't have the fever anymore, but I woke up this morning and I just coming out of me. And I got so tired in the afternoon. So I don't know. I feel like the second time has hit me a little harder than the first, honestly. So no, this is it for this weekend, hopefully. I'm going to take tomorrow off, enjoy some football tomorrow. And Tuesday night, we have a Canton Select Board meeting, I believe. So, we're going to be broadcasting that. Usually we have Rita on after, so that will probably happen Tuesday. We'll see. Wednesday is the DA candidate, hopefully, at 7 p.m. So that should be a good show, too. So that's what I have scheduled right now. I'm trying not to overbook, but I got so much material to get to right now. So many guests I want to bring on here. So many topics. So I'm just going to pace myself. Just one show, take a night off, do another show, take a night off, that type of thing. So you can start to hear it right now. You can hear it in my nose, right? Sorry to blow my nose on you. But that's what I'm dealing with. It's still, I don't know. Yeah, someone said rest. Yeah, I believe in rest. I believe rest does make a difference. So I'm doing my best I can. But I also enjoy the shows. If taking a week off sucked. I miss doing the show. I really do. It's fun. And I miss you guys. I miss reading the chat. I miss you guys making fun of me. Talking about my ex-girlfriends tonight. Come on. Yeah, I got the soup. I got everything. I'm good. I just need a little more time. I'll be back. I'm doing good. I sleep well. I go to bed early. Thank you, Nurse Kim. All right, I'm gonna check out. It's almost 9:00. I can't wait to see Turtleboy show too, and he may be coming on the show too next week. Just hopefully, I'm gonna try to get him back on the show too. It's about time that we have Aiden back in the show. I'm looking forward to see what he's got tonight at 9 p.m. So I'm going to go take a break, take out my dog, and then hopefully Turtleboy time at 9 p.m. Looking forward to that. I'll see you guys all when I see you. Probably maybe Tuesday night, unless I guest on someone's show. I'm not sure. I'm trying to take it easy right now. We'll see what happens. But Tuesday night, Canton Select Board, definitely. Wednesday night, we're going to be interviewing the candidate for DA to replace Michael Morrissey. I'm looking forward to that. So just check our YouTube. Make sure you check it out. Sometimes we decide to do things last minute. But I'll see you soon. I really appreciate everyone. 69 super chats tonight. Amazing. And I got some new stickers, new bumper stickers and some other stuff. Definitely going to be doing eventually, pretty damn soon, hopefully, a members only show. So that will be fun too. I'll see you guys. Have a great rest of your weekend.